Veritas Aquitus by Bones Boy 15, Chapter 28, Toad's Prophecy. Kurama drummed his fingers on the table while he propped himself up on his elbow, narrowed behind his sunglasses. His eyes were glued to the computer behind him, which displayed the lock screens of the CCT's internal systems menu. Now what was a first-year student of Beacon Academy doing trying to access what would be the core of Remnant's web of information flow? Well, he was trying to hack into it, obviously. The reason behind this was because of what Ruby had told him in the night before of the masked woman who broke into the Veil CCTs during the dance. Damn it, Ruby, couldn't you tell me a bit more than that? She was kneeling in front of a desk. Kurama thought, a tad annoying at the vague description of what the mysterious thief was doing. If I were a betting man, I'd say she was uploading a backdoor into the system. God, why is it that villains are so smart when their endgame is usually something really, really dumb? You look like you're having fun. Kurama glanced up and arched a brow. How the hell did you sneak out of curfew, son? He asked. Sun grinned and fell into an exasperation martial arts stance. I am a ninja. Fear my ninjitude. Yeah. Kurama rolled his eyes and looked back at the screen before him. Sun's shoulders slumped and pouted at his fellow faunus. Kurama didn't even blink. Be aware that I am the youngest of 9 siblings. Your wounded pout does nothing to me since I mastered it. Worth a shot. Sun shrugged and turned the chair around before he sat down in it. So, what you doing? Breaking several international laws very, very carefully. Kurama drawled. He sat up and tried another skeleton key that was swiftly and mercilessly denied. Quickly backtracking out of the failed attempt so he wouldn't be discovered by the system security. Kurama returned to the lock screen inside. Damn, this looks very devious. Sun grinned and his tail swayed mischievously. Can I help? Doubt it. Kurama said lowly. He pinched the bridge of his nose and sat in thought for a moment. Feeling Sun's unwavering gaze on him, Kurama growled, Don't you have a pussy that you want to pet? Sun, now with a healthy dusting of red across his cheeks, gained a dopey grin and his eyes glanced over slightly. A beat later and he shook the look out off of his face. I could ask you about a little rabbit you want to hop on. Vel and her team are on wall patrol. Got pulled by Ospin to assist the teachers, Kurama said shortly. He decided that it wouldn't be wise to divulge to Sun that he and Velvet were in the midst of enjoying the thrill of first base before being rudely interrupted by the thankfully blind fox. Kurama's eyes twitched slightly. Alistair may be blind, but he knew, I swear, there. Stupid, smirking bastard. Note to self, find something on him and use it against him. Ex-girlfriend, maybe. Aw, that sucks. Sun's voice stirred Kurama from his vengeful plots. The monkey-tailed faunus looked around and leaned in. So, word in the dorms is that one of Beacon's is the reason behind the lockdown. Any truth to that? Foiling the mystery girl can wait. I have gossip to spread. Kurama thought with an eager grin as he exited out of the program and cleared the computer's memory. He turned to Sun as the computer screen disappeared. Well, let's just say my fearless leader and his female duplicate had a very exhausting night last night. Sun's eyes gleamed and he grinned. Really now? Oh yes, in fact, the idiot still hasn't returned, but Yang did, and according to my source, Ruby, she was brought back into the dorm, drugged out of her mind. Whoa, you saying she was? Sun looked around again, and despite seeing no one that would overhear them, he leaned back in and whispered, Date raped? No, I don't think so. Kurama shook his head. He leaned back in his chair and folded his arms over his chest. I think that someone got the drop on them, brought Yang back to Beacon purposely, and took the invincible idiot to God knows where. They brought Yang back? Sun rubbed his chin and thought, well, she is hot, but Naruto definitely has a nicer ass. On par with Blake's for sure, right? Not to say you're probably pansexual, Sun corrected. Really? Kurama blinked when his fellow faunus nodded. I didn't know that. Huh, good for you. Thank you, Sun blinked. It's nice not to be judged. I'm an asshole, but not that big of an asshole, Kurama huffed. Besides, I'm a bit racist, so I can't exactly say anything fairly. At least you're honest, Sun chuckled. So, theories on who drugged the little dude? Who else? Kurama smirked. The perverted old toad hasn't been seen since yesterday afternoon. Yeah, I'd buy that. Spread the word. Gladly. I have the sudden urge to strangle Kurama. Jiraiya mused as he and Naruto the latter was still cooling off from their earlier argument, followed Fukusaku through the hidden settlement on Mount Miyaboku. Yeah, that happens from time to time, Naruto said sourly. His hands were thrust firmly into his jeans pants while he looked around the various people he walked by. Naruto arched the golden brow in confusion when he noticed that many of the adults would stare at him and mumble among themselves as he walked by. What he could hear were the words fourth son and sage. The hell was that supposed to mean? Ah, we're finally here. Fukusaku's voice drew Naruto's attention back to the small elderly man as the shadow fell over them. Looking up, Naruto's mouth fell open at the building that they approached, several stories tall and made from what looked like very old stone. Was a pyramid that was covered in vines, grass, and various other flora that hid itself from Naruto on his first view of the village. Carved on two sides of the entryway were two strong quadrupeds, and if Naruto didn't know any better, he'd say they're toads. Jiraiya affirmed the thought, a small smile on his face. The perverted sage placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder as they stood at the base of the staircase. There's a reason I'm called the Toad Sage, Naruto. I'll be damned, and here I thought it was because you were so ugly. Jiraiya cuffed Naruto upside the head for his cheek. Smug little. Come on, before I change my mind. While he rubbed his head and snickered, Naruto followed his godfather and Fukusaku up the steps. At the top of the temple steps, they entered into what Naruto presumed to be the main room, lit by torches and lanterns. The room had a mystical and ancient feel to it. A large circular pit with brown liquid of unknown origin was centered before a large statue of a massive toad. The toad statue sat on a throne made from rock. Atop its head was a triangular hat, and around its neck was the beaded necklace, holding a vibrant purple orb that had a symbol carved in it. This is Gamamaru, the great toad sage, Fukusaku said as he moved to stand beside Naruto. Many centuries ago, it was said that he foresaw a grand battle that would encase the entire world. He said that peace would only come once four stood together on a vital island. The war ended on Vital Island, Naruto mumbled. Everyone knew that. It was common knowledge, and the reason why the festival was named such. That prophecy was given at least 100 years before the war even began. Jiraiya continued. He turned to a far wall where there were ancient carvings depicting many sites, and Gamamaru gave more prophecies before he passed. Not all came to be. Gamamaru had at least 30 different world-ending scenarios that never saw daylight, but the ones that did had one similarity between them. The number 4. Okay. Naruto folded his arms over his chest. So, 4 is a magic number? What's your point? Think of the tales you heard growing up, Naruto boy, Fukusaku chided. There are a few that hold far greater truths than most would anticipate. I stopped thinking about fairy tales a long time ago, Naruto shrugged. Typical teenagers. I told you he was too old for the stories. Naruto looked over to the left as a previously hidden man stepped from the shadows. The man gave Naruto an unimpressed look over, and his red tail flicked at him. The man looked at Jiraiya. He looks just about as impressive as the last apprentice you brought here, only far more stupid. Naruto's eyes twitched in irritation. Who are you calling stupid, you old geezer? You dummy. Who else would I be calling stupid? Roshi, don't provoke him. Jiraiya sighed. He walked back and put a hand on Naruto's shoulders. Brat, calm down. This is Roshi Wukong, your son's grandfather. Naruto gave the older man a glance over and then shook his head. I don't see it. Yeah, and you don't look anything like your grandfather either, punk. Roshi snorted back. He glanced at Fukusaku and Jiraiya. Why are you wasting your time with this dumbass? We have to properly explain why we're here, Roshi boy. Fukusaku huffed. Tradition mandates that we offer him the choice first. Didn't we do the same for you? Yeah, though when you offered it to me, I was drunk, Roshi grumbled. He crossed his arms and leaned back against the wall. Fine, but hurry it up. I got a place to be, so I'd sooner get the dumbass arse kicking over with. Ass kick? I'll kick your ass, you old bastard. I don't care whose god and whose grandfather you are. Naruto snapped with a glare locked on the older monkey faunus. Roshi glared back at him. You talk the talk, boy, but can you walk the walk? Didn't know the fashion show was into Naruto's retort was cut off by Jiraiya when he clapped a firm hand over his godson's mouth. Roshi, stop riling him up. The toad sage snarled at the faunus. Roshi merely smirked at the blonde, who glared back with golden eyes before a swift smack to the head made him stumble forward. Jiraiya, whose own eyes now glowed gold, glared at his godson. Jiraiya put his foot down, literally, and cracks formed beneath it while both Roshi and Naruto looked at him. This is a sacred place. I will not let either of you defile it with your egos. All right, I'm sorry. Roshi apologized, his hands raised half-heartedly in an effort to placate the enraged sage. Jiraiya looked at his godson, who rubbed his head with a grimace on his face. Yeah, fine. But after, boy, I will skin you alive, Jiraiya warned formally. So, this Gamamaru guy had some prophecies that were like fairy tales, right? Naruto asked, looking away from his godfather and back at an amused Fukasaku. He'd pushed his luck too far and thought he didn't show it often. And though he didn't show it often, Jiraiya was far stronger than Naruto was. A memory of a battle he witnessed between his godfather and his godfather's estranged teammate made him shiver. There was a reason that some parts of the human body that weren't supposed to be able to bend in certain ways. Indeed, Fukasaku went to the same wall the Jiraiya stood beside. He pointed at several crude carvings. The story of the seasons, the tale of two brothers, the wrathful reaper, and the princely pauper. These four tales have been told for decades. Wait, but only the story of the seasons has four characters, the four sisters. The others only have one or two, Naruto said. Doesn't that go against the whole magic number you were speaking of before? You're catching on, Naruto boy, Fukasaku said with a smile. He tapped his cane on the ground. True, the tales have less than four focuses, but here it would be that the stories themselves add to four. I never said they were told separately in Gamamaru's great prophecies. Great prophecy? Naruto asked. He crossed his arms over his chest and frowned. Fate's a load of crap. We make our own destinies, perhaps, Fukasaku said with a nod. Perhaps prophecies just happen along because they are foretold, with unconscious decision enabling their completion. However, let's pretend that we're all under the snare and whim of fate for a brief moment. Naruto grimaced and shifted uncomfortably. Fine. Considering we have no control, that our actions and futures have been predetermined by an outside force, Gamamaru has foreseen another catastrophe that has yet to rear its head. Fukasaku gripped his cane tightly and his eyes hardened. One day, Gamamaru awoke. He started racing and spoke to his nearest chronicler. A danger comes to Remnant, one so great that not even the kings will be able to stop it. The sunlight will turn the clouds red, and a great fungus will spread across the land. A torch must be lit by the wasteland's storm. Four will stand against the war, but a hero must fall to order restore. To stop the spread, cut off the head, for it is there that hatred is spread. Tell the seasons, the brothers, the pauper, and the sage, and unity is the only way to prevent the grim age. Fungus, red cloud, the fourth war. Naruto balled his hands into fists. The connection was clear. There was no mistaking what the color and shapes were symbolic of. He knew they were coming. Indeed he did, Fukasaku sighed. And unfortunately, the rise of the White Fangs acts as well as the new threat. Our allies, the Brotherhood of Remnant, has demeaned the greater evil blinds the world to the harm that the fourth war will bring. Though I fear that to merely say the fourth war is the greatest threat will be untrue. All three of these variables are threats to the peace of today. Okay, so how do I fit into this prophecy? Naruto asked, a frown on his face as he folded his arms over his chest. We believe you're meant to be the sage, brat, Jiraiya informed him. No, seriously, how do I fit in? Naruto asked. Roshi laughed at the reaction while Fukasaku and Jiraiya exchanged amused smiles. Naruto looked between them. What? Oh, come on. I don't want to be a sage. I have a girlfriend and a wife, and I have a wife, and he's a lecher, Fukasaku added, throwing a thumb over at Jiraiya, who squawked. I'm not a simple lecher. Jiraiya put his fist on his hips and puffed out his chest. I'm a super pervert. Represent, brother, Roshi cheered with a fist raised proudly. Can I go back to Beacon now? Naruto asked Fukasaku, who sighed. No, Naruto boy, he said. Regardless of whether you believe the great prophecy or not, our original intention was to bring you here to teach you the ways of what you could call sage aura. Did you just make that up? Because it sounds like you just made that up. Naruto scrutinized the old man with a look. I am not the one who named it such. Fukasaku sent a smirk to Jiraiya, who huffed and turned away. Well, that's pretty much what it is, Jiraiya said under his breath. He turned and frowned back at the old man. Besides, I was like 10 when I started to learn it, Pa. saying jutsu or whatever sounds stupid. Senjutsu, Jiraiya boy. Senjutsu, Fukasaku grumbled. It is of the old language and translates to arts of sage techniques. Why not just call it that then? Naruto asked. I take it back. The punk's not a complete dumbass after all. You wanna go, monkey man? Enough, Fukasaku interjected. His cane firmly tapped into the ground, and the room filled with power. Naruto was driven to his hands and knees, where Roshi dropped only down to one knee. Jiraiya looked a bit slouched, but managed to remain upright, though with a second glance Naruto saw that Jiraiya's nose had enlarged and his eyes shrank slightly. Damn it, Paul, you nearly snapped my back. Jiraiya growled as he slowly righted himself. Fukasaku huffed and glared at him. If you'd have managed to finish your training in the proper manner when you were younger, drawing on Remnant's natural energy wouldn't be such a hassle for you. Well, I can't move, Naruto thought as he tried to bring his semblance up. His body and hair began to shine brightly, but no matter how much effort he put into it, he could not rise back to his feet. In fact, he was actually slowly getting closer to the ground. It was like the weight of the sun was on his back. Master Fukasaku, oh, stop, please. Mercy. Roshi groaned from his place on the ground. Fukasaku sighed sharply, through his nose before the weight suddenly vanished. Naruto accidentally launched himself into the ceiling, and Roshi rose up too fast, causing him to stumble. Naruto felt courtesy of gravity and landed into a grunt on his face. Not cool, he groaned, with a hand on his now sore nose. The whiskered blonde looked at Fukasaku. What the hell was that? That, Naruto boy, was the power of a sage, Fukasaku explained simply. He smiled. Do you recall when you first awoke, unable to stand or move at all due to the effects of the drug? Yeah, sort of, Naruto mumbled. You tapped me with your cane and it vanished. I manipulated a small amount of Remnant's natural energy into my aura and then transferred it into your body. It purged your cells of the toxin and relaxed your soul. You momentarily took in a sample of sage aura, Fukasaku explained. One more time, Naruto asked. Think of it like this, brat. Jiraiya cut in. He gestured to the room. What in this room has energy in it? Just us, right? We've all got aura, Naruto mumbled. Wrong. Jiraiya grinned. He pointed to the torches. Fire has energy. Torches that hold the fire have energy. The mountainside this room is carved out of has energy. Grass and oils had the gem on the statue's neck. Everything in this room has some sort of energy power in it. Some call it magic. Others may simplify it as aura. But when you get down to it, it's just that respective thing's natural energy. Okay, so everything has natural energy. Naruto nodded. He frowned. But how does that explain? Hold on. He hasn't even agreed to learn it yet, Roshi said swiftly and with a frown on his face. Not to mention, I'm still in the room. Yes, but you know about it already, Jiraiya said. No, he's right, Fukasaku nodded. Only sages and apprentices may learn of Senjutsu. Naruto boy has not accepted the offer, so he may not learn. What, seriously? You're going to dangle that in front of me and leave me hanging? Naruto asked, shocked at the turn of events. Come on, there has to be some way to let you teach me. No, Naruto, they're right. Jiraiya sighed. He folded his arms over his chest. You may only learn once you agree to the training. I don't have to give up any worldly possessions, Naruto asked skeptically. Nope. Jiraiya shook his head, grinning madly. How long does it take? It depends on how long you take, Fukasaku elaborated. There is no set time, and we will teach you for days straight. You will grow spiritually. This is not something that can be rushed. What about school? Naruto asked, frowning. Atlas has the whole place locked down after the breach, and they're stuck in their dorms after your night out. Jiraiya wagged his brows and grinned. Two thumbs were raised. By the way, congrats on no longer being a virgin in my eyes. Oh god, you didn't. Worry not, Naruto boy, Fukasaku interrupted with a smile. My wife prevented that from happening. Which again, I say is bullshit, Jiraiya pouted. The way that girl was limping down the stairs, practically hanging off of him. Oh, I bet it was perfect for my series. Yang's off limits, Naruto hissed. His face turned red as he pushed the memories way back. He absently rubbed the phantom pain on the side of his hips from how hard Yang's legs wrapped around them. That's fine and dandy and all, but can we get down to business? Roshi asked irritably. He tapped his foot and threw his thumb towards the door. I have somewhere to be, so make a choice, punk ass. Naruto folded his arms over his chest and closed his eyes, thinking about it. On one hand, he'd be away from his team, friends, and his girlfriend for an unknown amount of time. On the other hand, he'd learn something new that he could keep in reserve for the Vital Festival or use mercilessly on the Fourth War. Damn, My murder bone for the fourth war. Why is it gotta be so hard? Naruto inwardly groaned, dreading how his friends, let alone Yang, would react to this. Naruto sighed and opened his eyes. Alright, I'll do it. Great. Now come on, you little smartass. Roshi grumbled as he stormed past and grabbed Naruto by the top of his head in a claw-like hold. The whiskered blonde was dragged outside by the older faunus, protesting along the way. Jiraiya smirked and looked at Fukasaku. Told you he'd do that? Indeed. Now I believe we have a show starting. Oh yeah, this is going to be good. Naruto stood across from Sun's grandfather, fist raised and at the ready, while Roshi kept his arms crossed and his tail swayed from one side to the next. Around them was a small crowd of people, several small children on taller parents' or siblings' shoulders, each muttering under their breaths or pointing at Naruto and / or Roshi. Between the two, Jiraiya stood with his hands on his hips and a grin on his face. All right. He brought his hands together in a clap and rubbed them. Let's get this started. There's one rule to this fight, and that rule is very simple. No fatalities. Are we clear? As if he'd be able to, Roshi chuckled. Naruto's eyes twitched. Oh, I'm so tempted to break that rule. Good. You'll need to be able to beat me, brat. Punk ass. Fighters at the ready. Begin. Jiraiya jumped away and landed on a nearby tree branch, which had a bowl of snacks set on the limb. The audience followed his example, moving to higher ground to watch the fight. Ignoring the spectators' odd decision, Naruto kept his arms up and glared at the older man. He wasn't going to get hot-headed, not over this. He let the unknown variable make the first move. Naruto was ready to bring his semblance up at a moment's notice. Not going to go for the first punch? Roshi asked with a smirk. Naruto growled. I don't need your handicaps, he shot back. Yeah, you do, Roshi smirked. He closed his eyes and chuckled. When the eyes snapped open, molten red had replaced black orbs. Slowly, Roshi's entire body began to burn, and the ground beneath his feet began to burn. Roshi laughed madly as he became a being of lava. You should have taken my offer when you had the chance, boy, he cried out. Roshi cupped his hands together and a small ball formed between his palms. Let's see how good you are at dodging. Naruto, who was initially gaping at the semblance displayed at him, had to dive out of the way of the ball of lava that was thrown at him. The lone tree that stood behind Naruto quickly burned at the impact and teetered to the side. The blonde watched it all fall and then snapped his head back at Roshi, whose grin was barely perceptible through the lava-like skin he'd obtained. I bet you didn't see that coming, did you? Nope. Didn't see that coming at all. Naruto suddenly agreed as he let his semblance rise up at the 8th degree. He got back to his feet and rushed at the man of lava. In hindsight, it wasn't a brilliant plan. Heck, he didn't even have a plan. Then again, that's how he rolled 9 times out of 10. Alright, punk, you're good, but I'm still not impressed. Roshi grinned wildly and spread his legs in a crouch. He cupped his hands at his side. The bar across his face burned a bright red as his eyes narrowed. Naruto pumped more aura through his body, taking his semblance up to the 10th degree so he could stop the older fighter before he finished whatever he was up to. He brought a fist back in preparation to punch, only for his momentum to be halted by Roshi's now outstretched hands, the bottom of each palm vertically connected, and the vertically connected that slapped into his torso. Let's see you take the brunt of my devastating power, Roshi cackled. He pushed his hands out and the aura ripped through Naruto's shirt. A yell of exertion escaped the older Faunus' lips. Ha! A bright flash of red aura filled the clearing. Naruto's eyes shot wide and a scream escaped his lips as every nerve in his body at once relayed one word to his brain. Pain. The blonde screamed himself hoarse and could see only bright white for a while. Despite the fact he knew that the attack had come to a stop, he stayed on his feet, unable to see, hear, or feel anything outside of pain. Then, once more, Naruto succumbed to himself, to blissfulness, welcomed embrace of darkness. Roshi let his semblance dwindle away and cracked his neck. He stared at the still standing form of Jiraiya's godson and let out an impressed hum. A finger extended and pushed against the glowing blonde's forehead. The boy fell flat to his back and hit the ground with a small thud. Now that's an unfair semblance if I saw one, Roshi mused. He let his hands fall behind his back and tilted his head. The punk appeared that he was mostly unharmed thanks to his semblance, but Roshi's aura attacked, bypassed the exterior, and delivered ruthless internal damage. Like you're one to talk, Jiraiya muttered as he jumped down and landed beside his godson. He glared up at the Faunus. Was that necessary? Roshi pursed his lips, tilted his head, and looked up. He looked back at Jiraiya with a cheeky grin and nodded. You're a dick, and you're an arse. Don't you have an interrogation to conduct? Jiraiya's question made Roshi scoff and roll his eyes. Fine, fine. He turned to walk away, but stopped and looked back. He's not bad. Could use some more work in the tactical department. And he's a glutton for punishment, Roshi noted. He smirked. Little bastard didn't even have the decency to fall down once he was unconscious. Yeah, he gets that from his parents, Jiraiya chuckled as he patted Naruto's unconscious body up and threw him over his shoulder. Well, I should take him back to Beacon, let him rest up for a bit before we do any serious stage training. Not to mention there's that lead we've got to follow up on. Yeah, I'll go make sure our stool pigeon is telling the truth. You get him back to Ozzy's little castle, Roshi said with a smirk. His tail swished. Let me know when the training begins. I want a front row seat. You'll be the second to know, Jiraiya chuckled before he walked over to a marked wall, and a red and black portal appeared before him. The old sage disappeared with his godson and slash apprentice over his shoulder, and Roshi shook his head. Things are certainly starting to get very interesting, the monkey-tailed faunus mused. He chuckled and began to walk over towards a small hut that had 2 guards posted outside the door. Very interesting indeed. End of chapter 28.